Hello everyone, you're welcome to our class today. In our last class we looked at measures of central tendency where we talk about mean, mode and median. Today we are moving a little bit further talking about measures of dispersion. Another measures of dispersion, we are going to be looking at range, deviations, mean deviation, variance and standard deviation. So we are starting with range and mean deviation. Range and mean deviation. That's where we are starting from. Range is equals to the largest number minus smallest number. The largest number minus the smallest number. Deviation, we have defined deviation before. We know that deviation is equals to x minus by x. Now, in the case when you have assuming, it's given as s minus a, where a is your assuming. We've dealt with assuming before in our previous class. Then we have mean deviation. Mean deviation is that's MD is given as the sum of deviation over n. Sum of deviation over n. And when you involve large data, if you involve large data, we say it's the same thing as sigma fd over sigma what? Over sigma f. When it involves large data. So we'll take some examples. Example 1, find the range and mean deviation of the data we have. The datas are 2. We have 3, we have 4, we have 5, and 6. So we are going to find the mean and standard deviation, the range and mean deviation, range and mean deviation of this set of data. So we have the data given at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We know that the range is equals to 6 minus 2. That will be equals to 4. That's the largest minus the smallest. Then to get the mean, first of all, let's solve for the mean. By s is equals to 2 plus. Remember, by s is sigma x over sigma n. Sum of all the x, the number given. So you have 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. What is the total number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here is over 5. And if you add that together, you have 20. This is 20 over 5, which is the same thing as what? Which is the same thing as 4. So the mean is 4. Now to get the deviation, this is x, These are the number x. We have the deviation is x minus by x. Deviation is x minus by s. We have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, if we solve this, 2, this is 2 minus, here is 2 minus 4, that will give you minus 2. Then you have 3 minus 4, that will be equals to minus 1. You have 4 minus 4 is equals to 0. You have 5 minus 4 is equals to 1. And 6 minus 4 is equals to 2. Now, if you add everything here together, it's going to give you 0. This is 3 minus 3 to give you 3. It will give you 0. So take note, the sum of the deviation of any set of number is given as 0. The sum of deviation of every set of numbers is given as 0. So what do? Now we neglect the negative sign. So we have our d to be equals to 2, 1, 0, 1, 2. And when you add it together, it's going to give you 6. If you add the deviation together, it's going to give you 6. So what is our mean deviation? Remember that our mean deviation, that's d, mean deviation is equals to, sigma d over sigma n. Sigma d over sigma n. And that will be equals to, sigma means summation, please. This is equals to 6 over 5. And our mean deviation is 1.2. 1.2. Okay, we have example 2. The masses of 45 dressed chickens are shown in the table below. This is the masses in kilogram. This is kilogram. Kilogram. You have 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Then we have numbers of chicken. Numbers of chicken, we have 8, 12, 10, 6, 5, and 4. We are asked to calculate the range and the standard deviation. Calculating the range and the standard deviation. Now let's look at this. X is the masses of chicken and frequency is the number of chicken. So the first thing we need to do is to find the mean. Draw your mean. To find your mean, you find fx. Find fx. Then after that, we find the deviation. Find the deviation. Deviation is equals to s minus by s. That's the deviation. Then after that, you find fd. Fd. Remember, okay, we'll come to that. You know, we have to neglect the negative sign there. So what do we have here? Here is 10 times 8 is 80. Here is 144. Here is 140. 16 times 6. 16 times 6 is 96. 96. 5 times 18 is 90. Then you have 20 times 4 is 80. If we add this together, we add this together, we have 380 plus 144 plus 1 plus 140 plus 96 plus 90 plus 80. That will give us 630. 630. Then we've already know that the sum of the frequency is 45. From the question, we know that this is 45. So if To get the mean, use, let me come over here, but S is equals to sigma Fs over sigma Fs, but S is equals to sigma Fs over sigma F. So this will be the same thing as 630 over 45, and that will give us 14. So the mean by S is 14. Now, if the mean is 14, then we have to go back to the deviation. The deviation, we said that deviation is x minus by s. So here you have 10 minus by s, that is 14. That will give you minus 4. That will give you minus 4. Then you have 12 minus 14. That will give you minus 2. Then you have 14 minus 14 to get 0. You have 16 minus 14 to give you 2. You have 18 minus 14. That gives us 4. And 20 minus 14 gives us 6. So remember, when we neglect this negative sign, we neglect the negative sign, when we come to neglect the negative sign, so we have 4 times 8 is 32. 2 times 12 is 24. Here is 0. That is 0 times 10. Then you have 6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12. Here is 12. 5 times 4 is 20. And we have 4 times 6 is 24. So the sum of the deviation, if you take the sum of the deviation there, add everything you have there under FD together, your answer will be 112. You add it effectively, yes, 112. So what is the deviation? What is the mean deviation? We know that mean deviation is equals to sigma FD over sigma what? Over sigma F. So that will give us 112 over 45, and that is the same thing as if you divide that. That gives you 2.5. That's 2.5. So the mean deviation is 2.5. Don't forget, we are asked to find the range too. Range. Remember, the range is equals to range. Arrow is equals to range. Give us arrow is equals to, what is the biggest number here? Here is 10 minus the smallest number. I'm sorry, the biggest number is 20. Here is 10, and that gives us what? 10. So that will be the range. That will be the range. So remember, other deviation, we subtract mean from x. That's what we did under deviation. Subtract mean from s. And if you simplify that, effectively, you will obtain your mean deviation to be equal to 2.5. Example 3, the table below shows the distribution of height in meters of 100 students. Now, this case we have the one that have group frequency. This involves group frequency. This is the height ranging from 140 to 163, and each of the class have 140 to 142 is 3. We have 3. The class is a class of 3. And these are the frequency. You have 2, 4, 19, 30, 24, 14, 6, and 12. We are asked to calculate the mean deviation. I want to calculate the mean deviation. First of all, we are going to prepare a table where our S become the class mark. We've done something like that in our previous class. So let's prepare a table. So we have the table. This is the class, 140 to 142. Then the last class is 161 to 163. And these are the frequencies. Now the first thing we need to do is to find the class mark. Class mark become your S. Your class mark become your S. I told you before that class mark is the median of each of the class. So I have 140, 141, 142. The median is 141. And if you check for the other classes, your class mark here is 141, here is 144. That's the median, or you add the upper class to the lower class. You add the upper class to the lower class. So here is 147, here is 150, here is 153, here is 1. So here you have 153, then we have 156. Here we have 159. Here we have 162. So these are the class mark. Remember, is the median of each of the class. Then the next thing is for us to find the mean. To find the mean, we have fx here. fx, which is f times x. So if you multiply that, 2 times this is 282. 4 times 144 is 576. 576. Then we have 19 times 140. 19 times 147. That will give you 2793. Then you have 150 times 30 is 4,000. 500. 4,500. This is 500. 500. Then you have 24 times 153. That will give you 3,672. Then 40 times 156 is 2,184. Then we have 6 times 156 is 954. Then 1 times 162 is 162. 162. So if you add this together, the sum will give us 15,123. If you add this together, you have 15,123. We know that the total frequency is 100. So that total frequency is 100. Total frequency is 100. So now to get the mean, the mean is by S and is sigma f x over sigma f. That will be equals to 15123 divided by 100, and that will give us 100, and then that will give us 151.23. That's 23. That's equals to 151.23. So now to get the deviation, don't forget, to get the deviation, we'll subtract 151. I'm subtracting 151 in this case. Subtract 151. This is your deviation. Deviation is equals to S minus by S. If I subtract 151 from 141, that will give me minus 10. But remember, we'll neglect the negative sign later. Then if I subtract from 154, then from 147, here is 4. From 151, we have 150. From 150, that is here is minus 1. Then here is from 153 you have 2. Then from 156 you have 5. You have 5. Then from 159 you have 8. Then lastly you have 11 here. Remember, I want to neglect the negative sign. Because I'm looking for mean deviation. I'll neglect the negative sign so that here's my FD, which is frequency times this. Here will be 20. 4 times this is 20. 4 times 7 is 28. Neglect the negative sign. Then you have 19 times 4 is 96. And 76, this is 76. Then you have 30 times 1, we give you 30. Then you have 24 times 2, we have 24 times 2, that will give us, 24 times 2 is 48. Then we have 5 times 14 is 70. Then we have 8 times 6 is 48. Then 1 times 11 is 11. 1 times 11 is 11. If we take the sum of this, the sum of the deviation, that will give us 33, 331. 331, that will be the sum of the deviation. 331. And for us to get the mean deviation, MD is equals to what? Sigma FD over sigma F. That will be equals to 331 divided by 100, and that will give us 3.31. So the mean deviation is 3.31. 3.31. And now we are going to be looking at variance and standard deviation. Variance and standard deviation. Variance is S squared. Variance S squared, and is equals to sigma S minus by S squared over N. So since D is equals to S minus by S, we say sigma D square over N. And it's still the same thing. If we are dealing with data that have frequency, so we have variance to be equals to sigma F S minus by S all square over N. And that's the same thing as sigma F D square over sigma F over the sum of F. Also, we have variance. We can also define variance as X as C squared times sigma FU squared over sigma F over sigma f minus sigma fu over sigma f all squared. So these are the definition of variance. As we take questions, we'll be able to illustrate the meaning of some of these terms. C, what is C? C is called class interval. Class interval. Then your U is given as x minus by x over C. S minus by S over C. If you are using, in the case of assuming, it will now become S minus A over C. Minus A over C. So this is variance. This is variance. Now, standard deviation is given as the square root of variance. So we say standard deviation, standard deviation is the square root of what? Variance, which cannot be given as the square root of sigma d square over n, sigma d square over n, and it's also given as sigma f d square over sigma f. That's the square root. And we also say it's the same thing as, standard deviation is the same thing as C root, that's C times root sigma fu square over sigma f minus sigma, you have fu over sigma f. Everything here is one square. So what we just do is that for you to get standard deviation, if you get the variance, you take the square root. That gives you the standard deviation. So we'll take some examples. Now find the standard deviation of the following set of data. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first thing, solution. The first thing is to find the mean. By S is sigma x over what? N. That will be equals to 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Everything is over 5. And if you add that together, that will give you 10 over 5. So by S is equals to 2. The mean is equals to 2. The next thing is to find the deviation. Let's just draw a little table. This is our x. This is our d, which is equals to s minus by s. So our d, so you have 0, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3, you have 4. You have 3, you have 4. So so the first one, 0 minus 2 is minus 2. 0 minus 2 is minus 2. 1 minus 2 is minus 1. 2 minus 2 is 0. 3 minus 2 is 1. And 4 minus 2 is equals to 2. The next thing is to find d squared. D squared minus 2 square here will be 4. Here is 1, here is 0. 1 square is 1. 2 square is 4. So the sum of all the deviation, is 10. Sum of all deviation is 10. So here you have 10. Now, standard deviation, variance, let's start with variance. S squared, which is variance, is equals to sigma d over n. So that will be equals to, we have 10 over 5. Total number is also 5. And that will be equals to 2. So, what is our standard deviation? Standard deviation x, SD is the square root of x squared, and that will be the square root of what? 2. Square root of 2 is the same thing as 1.4. So our standard deviation is 1.4. 1.4. So we have example 2. Example 4, the table below shows the sizes of shoes of 50 athletes. This is the size of shoe. We have 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. And these are the numbers of athletes. Now, we are asked to calculate the variance and the standard deviation. Now, look at it. Let's, our x, from the table here, our x is the size of shoes. So you have 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. The frequency is the number of athletes, which is 8, 7, 5, 6, 7, 9, 8. Then the first thing we need to do is to find the mean. And to find the mean, you must find fx. Fs, 38 times 8 will give you 304. 39 times 7 will give you 273. 40 times 5 is 200. 41 times 6 is 246. 42 times 7 is 294. 43 times 9 is 387. And 44 times 8 is 352. If you take the sum of everything, you have 2056. 2056. So we have our mean, which is by x, is equals to the sum of fs over what? The sum of f. And that would be 2056 over 50, and that is equals to 41.12. So I approximate to get 41. Approximate that to get 41. Now, you come back here. Your deviation is x minus by x. So we have 38 minus 41 to have minus 3. Here is minus 2. Have minus 2. From 40, you have minus 1. 41 from 41 is 0. 42 from 41 is 41 from 42 is 1. 43 from 42. 43 minus 41 is 2. And 44 minus 41 is 3. Now the next thing is to take the square of the deviations. Square deviation, 3 square is 9. Minus 2 square is 4. Minus 1 square is 1. 0 square is 0. 1 square is 1. 2 square is 4. And 3 square is 9. Now the next thing is to take frequency times deviation. Frequency times deviation, that will give us 8 times 9 is 72. 7 times 4 is 28. 5 times 1 is 5. 6 times 0 is 0. 7 times 1 is 7. 9 times 4 is 36. And 8 times 9 is 72. And if you take the sum of that, that will give you 220. 220. So we look for our variance. Variance is equals to sum of fd squared over sum of f. So that will be equals to 220 over 50, and that will give us 4.4. So our standard deviation is the square root of 4.4, and that will be equals to 2.0. That is our standard deviation. That's our standard deviation. Example 6. The table below shows the mark obtained by a group of students in a class test. You have the mark 40 to 44. That is the first class. The last class is 65 to 69. Now we are asked to find the standard deviation. The numbers of students, you have 4, 9, 18, 23, 10, and 6. So we are going to make a comprehensive table of the standard deviation so that we can find the standard deviation. Now let's see the solution. This is the mark ranging from 40 to 44. You remember the class mark here? The class mark will be the median of each class. So let's take the first one, for example. We have 40, you have 41, you have 42, you have 43, you have 44. So the median is 42. So that is how you get the median. Alternatively, you can say 40 plus 44 over 2. That would be 84 over 2. And that would be the same thing as 42. So you can use any of the method to get the median. So here we have 42. Here is 47. Here is 52. Here is 57. Here is 62. And here is 67. That is the deviation. For us to get deviation, before we get deviation, we must find fx. So we find fx. Find fx. If you find fx, you have 4 times 42. There will be 168. 9 times 47 is 428. 428. 9 times 47. 9 times 47 is 423. 18 times 52 is 936. 23 times 57 is 1311. Then we have 62 times 10 is 620. And 67 times 6 is 402. So if you add it together, if you take the sum is 3860. While the sum of frequency is 70. Sum of frequency is 70. So we need to find the mean. Find the mean. So we have the sum of frequency to be 70. So to find the mean, this is 70. Take note, this way we have 70. To find the mean is by S. By S is sigma fx over sigma f. So that will be equals to 3860 over 70. And that will give us 55.14. 55.14. So I'm using 55 as my bar S So here we have deviation. You know that deviation is what? Deviation is your mean, your x minus by x. S minus by s. So we have deviation is equals to s minus by s. So we have 42 minus 55. 32 minus 55 is minus 13. So we have minus 8 here, minus 8, that is, you have your mean, that is 55 from 47 to give you minus 8. Then you have 52 minus 55, that is minus 3. 57 minus 55 is 2. 62 minus 55 is 7. And 67 minus 55 is 12. Then the next thing we need to look at is our FD. That's frequency times D. Frequency F times minus 13 is minus 52. 9 times minus 8 is minus 72. 18 times minus 3 is minus 54. 23 times 2, 46. 10 times 7 is 70. Then 6 times 12 is 72. Then the next thing is d squared. That means we are taking the square of everything here. 13 squared is 169. Minus 8 squared, 64. Minus 3 squared is 9. 2 squared is 4. 7 squared is 49. 12 squared is 144. Then you have frequency times d squared. Frequency times d squared. Frequency times d squared, we have these are frequency times d squared. That will give you 6. That's 4 times 169 to give you 676. 9 times 64, 576. 18 times 9. 18 times 9 is 162. 23 times 4 is 92. 10 times 49 is 490. Then you have 6 times 144 is 8. That is 864. So if we take the sum of everything, we have the sum of the deviations. Sum of the deviation is 10. Here is 10. If you add it very well, that will give you 10. And the sum of FD, sum of deviation times deviation times frequency, the sum is 2824. 2824. We have, add this together, you have 2824. So now, for us to get standard deviation, we are using standard deviation. Use the formula standard deviation is equals to the square root of standard deviation is the square root of sigma f d square over sigma f minus sigma d over sigma f all square. All square. So if you put the value there, sigma d is 10. So this will give me 2824 over, remember we are taking the square root, over 70 minus 10 over 70 all square. And if you solve this very well, our final answer here will be equals to 40. Final answer is 40. Final answer is the square root of 40. That will give you the square root of 40.32. Square root of 40.32. And that is the same thing as 6.4 approximately. That become our standard deviation. That become our standard deviation. Remember, I introduced a new formula here. Sigma f d square over sigma f is equals to sigma d over sigma f. It's advisable you use this when it involves group frequency. It's advisable you use this when it involves group frequency. The frequency distribution below shows the weight of 100 participants in a jumping competition. Now, we have the weight ranging from 20 to 29 to 70 to 79. And these are the numbers of participants. You have 10, 18, 22, 25, 16, and 9. We are asked to, using assuming of 54.5 kilograms, we are asked to calculate 1, the mean, 2, the standard deviation, and 3, the coefficients of variance. Coefficients of variance. So we are going to, first of all, come up with our table. Let's draw our table. So we have our table. Here is the weight, here is the frequency. Our class mark, remember our class mark is the median, which is 20 plus 29. If you divide it by 2, that will give you 24.5. So here's 34.5. Here's 44.5. 44.5. Here's 55.5. Here's 65.5. And here's 75.5. That become our F's. Now remember that what? Your deviation here is your x minus by s. So in the first place we have 24. And don't forget that our assuming is given to us. Our assuming from the question is 44.5. So we have 24. This will give you minus 20. This will give you minus 10. This is 0. This is 10. This is 20. And this is 30. This is 30. Then the next thing is your deviation, your u. U is equals to x minus a over c. C is the class width. C is the class width. If you count from here to here, you have 10. So everything here is divided by 10. This is 20 minus 10 divided by 10. This is minus 2. This is minus 1. This is 0. This is 1. This is 2. And this is 0. Everything we have here we divide by 10. That's exactly what we do. Then the next thing is to find FU. FU, that will be equals to 10 times this will give you minus 20. 18 times minus 1 is minus 18. Here we have 0, that's 22 times 0. 25 times 1 is 25. 16 times 2 is 32. And your 9 times 3 is 27. Then you have u squared. U squared is minus 2 squared is 4. Then you have minus 1 squared is 1. 0 squared is 0. 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4. And 3 squared is 9. 3 squared is 9. Then the next thing is to find our FU square. FU square, this will be 10 times 10 times 4. Here will be 40. This is 40. 18 times 1 is 18. They have 22 times 0. That's 0. 25 times 1 is 25. 16 times 4, that will give us 64. So here we have 64. And 9 times 9 is 81. Now, remember, we are also asked to find the mean. We are also asked to find the mean. So remember that mean is the sum of deviation. So the first thing we are going to find is by S, which is equals to A plus sum of what? FD. Sum of FD over what? Sum of what? F. So that will take us to FD. We now add FD to our table. Add FD to our table to be able to get, to be able to solve for the mean. FD is F times what? Deviation. F times deviation. F times minus 20. This is 200. 18 times minus 1. Remember, you have minus here. Yes, minus 18. Then we have 0. 25 times 10. This is 18 times minus 10. That will be 180. Then you have 25 times 10 to have your 250. Then you have 16. 16 times 20 is 320. Yes, 320. Then 9 times 30 is 270. So yes, 270. So if you add everything together, here together, you have 360. So our mean will be equals to 44.5, which is the assuming, plus 44.5, which is our assuming plus 360 over sum of here is 100. Yes, 100. That is sum of the frequency. And if you solve that, you have 44.5 plus 3.6. So our mean, using assuming method, our mean will be equals to 49.1. 49.1. That gives us our mean. Then the next thing is to find the standard deviation. Standard deviation. So the standard deviation X. Standard deviation is S is equals to C times, we are using this formula now, C times sigma FU square over sigma F minus sigma FU over sigma F all square. So if you add our FU, if you add our FU together, FU will give you 46. FU is equals to 46. So here, what do we mean by 46? Add this together, subtract 38, that will give you 46. So here is 46. Well, if you add FU squared together, that will give you 225. 225. To give you 225. So if we apply that into the formula, where is our C? I've said our C is what? C is the class width. So this will be equals to 10 times the square root of 225 over 100 minus 46 over 100 all square. And if you solve that very well, your final answer will be equals to 14.3 approximately. Yes, minus, don't forget, there's minus here. If you solve it very well, you have 14.3 approximately. So our standard deviation is 14.3. So this is your first question. This is A. This is B. This is B. Then the last question we have there is C. We are asked to determine the coefficient of variance. Coefficient of variance. Coefficients of variance, coefficients of variance is given as x, which is standard deviation over bar s times 100 over 1. Times 100 over 1. So, quickly, we'll have our variance this is equals to 14.3 over bar s. We solve for our bar s to be equals to 49.1 times 100, and that will give us about 28.9. This is 28.9%. That is the coefficients of variance. Coefficients of variance. So don't forget, we're able to use 3 different formulas in solving what? In solving our standard deviation and variance. Thank you very much for being part of this class. I will urge you and advise you to tell others about the class. Please subscribe and always share. Always share so that others can learn from what you are learning too. God bless you.